Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you everything in the toolbar, what it does, at least everything that I know. Before I get into that though, I'm going to show you why the target give wasn't working, the battle suit. So if you click on the player start, press N, you can see that the target is set to target give even though I already deleted it. So what you want to do is just delete this key, deselect it, go back to target give. Let me select the right one first. Target give item environment suit. Deselect everything. Select the player start first. Link it to the target give, and then from the target give, you're gonna link it to the environment suit. We'll compile real quickly. So I'm just doing a straight BSB compile. We're not compiling the flight. As you can see, I have battlesuit. So just make sure your entities are linked correctly. Yeah. So to jump right into it, you got your basic file save, all that good stuff. You can also import maps. So for example, I'm just going to import my sky test map, and it's going to import it wherever it is in the actual map file. So in this case, it's imported right here. As you can see, this is the map file. And you can also copy and paste as well. So I'm just going to open up, take this map. So I'm just going to select this area, shift, right click, Control C to copy it. No. And go back to test map. I'm going to press Control V to paste it, and it pastes it again in the exact spot you copied it from. There you go. It's going to delete it. So that's how you import map files. Edit, undo, redo, copy, paste the camera, move the camera, you can do all that stuff. Duplicate is your spacebar. Duplicate make unique, that's if you're using a function group. So I'm going to create some arbitrary brushes right here. My mouse is acting up. So I'm going to set this as a function group. What was the key? Shift space. So if I press spacebar, it's just going to, that's fucking huge. So just pressing spacebar to select a group, you select one brush, press Control E, and it selects the group entirely. So if I do shift spacebar, come on now, I press Control E, it's its own group. So just doing spacebar creates the same group. Creates a duplicate of the same group. Compared to doing shift spacebar, it creates a separate group. So I'm going to do it again, shift spacebar, press this Control E to select the group, and it's its own group. So that's what that is. You can also do, I believe it's Control C, Control V. So I'm going to press Control E. Yep, that also works too. So when you do Control C, Control V, it pastes it directly on top of it, as opposed to shift spacebar, which nudges it. I think I went over what invert selection is in the first video. So if I want to select everything, I just press I. That selects everything. I want to select everything except the lights. So I'm going to select one light, press Shift A, that selects all the lights, and then I just press I, that inverts the selection. So everything is selected except the lights. As you can see, there's the lights there. I've never used these. This is for like if you're doing a CSG tool. So a quick way to make certain sized brushes is Control 3 is your triangle, Control 4 is your square, 5 is your what is that, hexagon, 6 6-sided, 7 7-sided, 8 8-sided, 9 9-sided, and there's no 10-sided. And you can also make arbitrary sided brushes. Somewhere here, I don't remember where exactly. But what was I saying? Yes, CSG tool. CSG tool, where is that? Right there. So if I want to do this up to 32. That's not correct. Extrude faces. That's not correct. You just gotta play with this. I don't really use this that often. Anyway, I don't feel like going over it. So you just gotta figure out what these do. I've personally never used it. Shift A, that's a shortcut I use all the time. Select texture, Control Shift A. I don't know what that does. I'm gonna select a texture. And by the way, I updated my caulk texture. What you used to see as pink before is now gray and white. So I'm gonna do Control Shift A. Okay. It's interesting. I don't know. I've never used that. Control expand selection primitives. Control E. Okay, this is to select a function group. Expand selection to entities. What the fuck does that mean? Shift E. Shift E. Shift E. Shift E. I have no idea what the difference is, to be honest. Select connected entities. Shift Control E. Try this out. Shift Control E. That's pretty cool. Shift Control E. Okay. So this entity is connected to all these other entities. That's Shift Control E. Again, you could always update and change the shortcuts to your liking. So we go to View, Model Browser. This is pretty dope. It's fully manipulative so that you can move it around, see what it looks like. It's going to go to Map Objects, just like that, and let's put my camera here. And I'm just going to double click. Here it is. So models, you can press N. These are all your spawn flags. You can figure out what they do by reading this stuff. And then you can also rotate this by pressing R. And this is your rotation tool. You can also manipulate it here on the grid. So I'm rotating it on the X-axis, Y-axis, whatever axis that is. And then you can also obviously change the point of rotation. I'm I'm going to put it on his forehead. And you can also rotate it here along the 3D camera. This is not just for models. You can rotate anything. So if I can take this wall right here, and I can rotate it however I want. So from the model browser, you can just press backslash, and you can pull it up. Entity inspector, we use that all the time. That's hotkey N. So I'm just going to press N. Surface inspector, press S. S, it's the same thing. Patch inspector, I've never used this before. This might be something new, I have no idea. Entity list. This pulls up all your entities in the map. Clicking on it selects it. I personally never used that. Focus on selected. These are all shortcuts I use. So tab. So I have this selected. I press tab. My camera jumps to it. Tab, tab. Next leak spot. So if you have a leak in your map and you try to compile it, so I'm just gonna go like that. I'm gonna build it. I'm gonna make multiple ones to give you an idea. So I'm gonna compile it. We have a leak, map leaked, shows you where the leak is. So you just follow from the point, the origin point, to where the leak is. So I'm gonna fix this leak. View, camera, next leak spot. Control-Shift-K, 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 Control-Shift-K. Maybe it doesn't work. Camera, previous leak spot, Control-L. I don't think it works as intended, so I'm going to save it, recompile. And there's our second leak. Control tab, that's just changing views in your 2D grid. So Control tab. Again, I went over this in the first video. Show. This is pretty important. So you can show entity angles. I don't know what that means exactly. Entity names. So you see missed teleport destination, trigger multiple, target checkpoint. If I deselect that, show entity names, all that disappears. And then you can also update that in the settings. Entity names equals target names, okay. Oh no, not that setting, my mistake. Where is it at? Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Name display ratio. So what that means is if I set this to 256, for example, let me start real quick. You show entity names. So it's going to keep showing up until right there. as opposed to 64 units. As you can see, all the entity names are gone until I zoom in closer. That's what that does. Light radiuses, you want to keep this checked. See, if I have it unchecked, you don't see the light radiuses anymore. So you want to use that one for sure. Show entity boxes. So item environment suit, you don't see the purple outline. Same thing with weapons. You don't see the weapon outline. I like to keep it on because if you want to select it, you have to click right on it, otherwise it won't select. So like, for example, I'm trying to select a weapon, I have to click right on it. Environment suit, it's very thin, I have to click right on it. Compared to show entity boxes, I can click anywhere within that box. I should be able to click anywhere within that box to select it, but I guess not. My mistake. So that's entirely up to you if you want to use that or not. Show entity connections. It just filters connections. So you don't see how it's linked anymore. I don't recommend using that. Show 2D size info. I don't know what that does. Okay, that's what that does. So when you create a brush, it gives you the size info. So this is 128 units by 128 units. And it's all along grid point 320, 448, 320, 512, 384, 512. So I recommend using that. Show 2D size info, show 3D size info. It's the same thing. So if I jump to the camera, you can see it right here. (128 by 128, 64 units high. I don't really map in the 3D view, so I'm going to disable that. I have it right here. I don't need to see it right there as well. Show crosshair, Shift X. That's what I like to use. Crosshair is this thing right here on the grid. Show grid. So if you ever want to disable the grid for like a screenshot, for like your level shot or something like that, just press a 0 on the keyboard. That disables the grid. Mind you, you're still mapping on the grid itself. It's just a visual change, that's all. Show blocks. You can there's something technical about this. I used to know it years ago, but I don't really remember anymore. So I'm going to disable that. Show coordinates. Coordinates are on the left and the top. It shows where in the point you're mapping. I like that, so I'm going to keep that enabled. Show window outline. So if you look here and here, you can see where the window breaks. No point in that, so I'm going to keep that disabled. Show axes. Okay, the XY point marker right here, it's gone now. So I'm going to keep that enabled. There it is again. Show coordinates. What does that do? No, 2D work zone. I don't like this, it's in my way. I use the crosshairs, so that makes up for that. 3D work zone is this outline here. Again, I don't map in a 3D view, so I'm just going to disable that because it's in my way all the time. Show render stats. Whatever this stuff means, I have no idea what this means. Don't need it, don't want it, disabling it. Filter, these are all your filter keys and the hotkeys associated with it. Again, they're all right here as well. Hide selected. So if you're working with something complex and it's in your way, you can just press H to hide it. It doesn't delete it, it just hides it. To show hidden, Shift H. Again, that's here. Hide. Show hidden. And then there is region compiling. If you want to, if you're testing a specific part of the map, so I'm just gonna jump into my DFWC map and jump right here. So if I want to test this specific section out, what you can do is Shift right click to select it, then press Control Shift R, or select this key right here. So it just creates a simple map using this little section. Okay. It looks like it's gonna leak, but when you compile the map, it's gonna throw a default null box around the map. So I'm just gonna compile BSP. Well, this is a bad example because I have the map, but you can just run a compile and you can test this little section out. So I'm going to rename this to region. Save. So again, select, Control Shift R, and I'm just going to run a straight BSP compile. C21-1, let's copy reach, close map. So when you do region compiling, wherever your camera is where your player start is going to be. So let's recompile this with the camera right here. So I'm going to press F5 to recompile using the last settings. Reload the map. There we go. And this is the region where that we just compiled. So we're going to test this out. Whatever. Obviously it looks like shit because I didn't compile with lighting. This is straight raw BSP. There's no start or stop timer, so the triggers don't work. So you already have all the weapons. But that's how you do region compiling. And then when you want to disable region compiling, you just click this button again, and it loads the map. The reason why I had to rename this is because I actually have the actual PK3 in my folder. So if I didn't rename it, it would load the actual map, the actual PK3 version of the map, not the BSP that I'm working with, because the PK3 is overwriting the BSP file. So that's region compiling, very handy for testing. You have your brush faces. So I'm just gonna select and create a brush here, jump to it with tab. So you can press E to mess with the edges. So you create brushes like this. Maybe we want to give it a bit of an angle. And you can absolutely use a 3D view to do it as well. It's just a little finicky because depending on how the camera is set up. So if I'm looking this way and I go down, it's gonna jut it out towards me. So I have to look in the right direction. This is why I prefer mapping in the 2D grid. It's just easier. You just have to find the right angle. So if I'm selecting this one, I just click it once, highlights the blue, and just go down. Easy as that. And so that's E, components E. I want to do vertices, press V, and I can select the individual angles themselves. Again, why I don't like mapping in the grid. In the camera, I mean. So I'm going to select this edge. So this is actually how you make terrain as well. I'll get that in a later tutorial. It's been a while since I've made terrain. So I gotta relearn how to do it, and then I'll show you guys how to do it. Oh, this looks stretched. So that's V for vertices. Just like that. There's a way to map to create abstract brushes with the vertice tool. I don't know how to do that. Snap to grid, Control G. Okay, that's pretty handy. So if you look at this point right here, it's not really, is it that point? Control G. Okay, so I am using grid 64. It's in between the grid points. So if I press Control G, it's going to snap it to the grid point. If I use, what grid is this? 256, you're going to see it jump pretty severely. Control G. Yeah, nothing was lined up. So all these points just jumped to the nearest one, which is right here. Control G. And it basically made a square. I've never used it, but maybe you might. You can nudge it left, right, up, and down. So Alt, left, right, up, down. Alt, left, right, left, down, right, up. And it's also dependent on your 2D camera, your view. So I'm going to do top down, left, down, right, up. So if I go Alt, up, change the view, Alt, up, change the view, Alt, left, down, right. You get the idea. It's no different than manually moving it. But let's say it's like this, and you just want to align it to the left a little bit. You can do that, or you can just move it to the right. Rotate X, Y, Z. Again, you can just use rotate clockwise, counterclockwise, in combination with changing the view and rotating it as well. So we'll select this brushes to give you an example. So clockwise, right? Change the view, rotate it upside down, and I can rotate it again, top down view. So changing the views and rotating it, it's very handy. Flipping it, same thing as these. Flip horizontally, vertically. Again, it's 2D grid dependent. So I am looking at it from the back. I'm going to flip it horizontally. So if I texture these differently, you'll see what I'm talking about. Flip vertically, flip horizontally. Flip X, flip Y, flip Z. Same thing. Filters, arbitrary rotation. Let's say I just want to rotate this manually 1 degree. Shift R, yeah. I want to rotate it 15 degrees, just like that. Again, can manually do it right here. Arbitrary scale, I've never used that before. What was the shortcut? Control Shift S. No idea what that does. Repeat transformations. This is a handy tool. I haven't found a use for it yet. But basically, like, I have this. What was it? Control R. Yeah, it does something. I'm not 100% sure what it does yet. I haven't messed around with it. You might have to read the facts or something for Netradiant custom. Your build menu is your compiler menu, so you can customize it. So I believe these are standard for Netradiant custom. It's also standard. This is my final compiler with no OB. This is for external light maps. So I have external light map hex size 1024. 1024 is the size of the images. This is a final test. You can convert to ASC to OBJ. You can make a PK3. So basically, once you compile your map, right, you do whatever compile setting you use, and then you click make PK3. It'll compile a PK3 for you. And if you're mapping for defrag, it'll just dump it in your either defrag folder or Quake3 folder. I forget which one. Yeah, it goes to your Quake3 folder, and it names it underscore autopacked. So when you release your map, just delete that because your BSP file is still named whatever your map file is named. And I'll link you guys the manual for this. It's not really a manual, it's more of a wiki. This is your grid size, miscellaneous. I'm gonna go full screen, F11. Maximize view, F12. So if I maximize the view on the 3D camera, F12, texture list, F12, console, F12, wherever your mouse is pointed, it'll maximize that view. Entity control can connect entities, control K, move primitives to entity, control M, I don't know what that does. Select color is K, normalize color, no idea what that does. Brush, you can create abstract brushes. Prism, we'll do 13 sides. It's a 13-sided brush. Again, if you do control five-sided brush. So for example, prism, make that 5, got a 5-sided brush. So after a 9-sided brush, control 9, you're gonna want to use prism. So maybe you want a 32-sided brush, press OK. This brush has 32 sides. So yeah, 32 sides. Brush cone, it creates a cone. So let me make this thicker. Again, it's dependent on which view you're looking at. So if I make a cone here, well, maybe not. Yeah, it should. So brush cone. Okay. Well, I guess not. So do a cone with, say, 16 sides. It's a much sharper image, but you also have to remember you now have 17 sides for that one brush. You can create a sphere. So we'll do 32 units. I think my rating just crashed. It did. So we're going to create a sphere of 8 units. We have the sphere, and then we can make this hollow or make a room out of it. And you have a hollowed out sphere. So again, I'm going to go to CSG tool. CSG tool is very powerful. So I'm going to caulk some faces. Yes, I'm going to keep that checked. Remove inner brush. So I'm going to keep that unchecked. I'll show you what that does. I'm going to do minus faces. I'm going to do diagonal joints. So diagonal joints is the joints where they meet don't overlap, they're diagonal. So what I mean by diagonal is they fit perfectly. So as you can see, we have our inside brush still. So I'm just going to hide this. Actually, I'm going to undo this. Too much. I'm going to do remove inner brush, diagonal joints, hide this, and we don't have the inside brush anymore. Excuse me, one moment. Alright, sorry about that, I'm back. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself right here, but since I'm here, I'll show you. Hollow wrap. I mean, the picture is pretty self-explanatory. So hollow wrap. It hollows out the brush and it wraps the brushes. So as you can see, it's not as clean as compared to doing it hollow joints. you can extrude the faces. So as you can see, brushes are extruded, they're not joints. And you can pull the faces. So the inside is textured, the outside is not. So I'm going to disable cope, do the same thing, just like that. And you can also extrude brushes. So I'm going to hold Control Alt left. Well, I'm going to select the face first. Control Alt left click. Control Alt left click. And now I can drag this out. Select the face, Control left click, and then hold Control Alt left click. I can select multiple at the same time. Control Alt left click, and all three are extruded. So if I want to do this side, I absolutely can. Control Alt left click. Change the grid size so it's not as the word I'm looking for. I don't know. I'm fucking tired. So yeah, Control Alt left click. There you go. Brush. That's a sphere. I went over this in the last tutorial. We can create rocks. Brush rock. We're gonna do 56, and now we have a 56-sided rock, and you can absolutely rotate this. If you don't click anywhere on these lines, you can do free rotation. You can change the point of rotation. When you press R, so rotation is your R button. So you can click it up here. So if you change the point of rotation, like right there, right? You press R to deselect it. R again, it resets the rotation. So if you fuck something up, like there, you didn't want to move there, just double tap R. You can do it again. So that's how you create rocks. I'm not going to pronounce the ecosahedron. So let's create a brush first. Subdivisions. I don't know what that means. Press OK. Creates this cool looking brush. So create another one. I'm going to bump that up to 2 subdivisions. Much more complicated brush. And then, oh man, that's slow. Brush. I'm going to add truncate. Okay, that's pretty dope. I'll take this one. Truncate. So you can kind of see the difference here. I think that's the same. Okay. That is massively complex. It made my gradient extremely slow. So I don't recommend using that one. So this is subdivision 1 without truncate, subdivision 2 without truncate, subdivision 1 with trunculate, subdivision 2 with trunculate. As you can see, subdivision 2.1 is extremely complex and I can't even move it. So delete that. So with the extruding faces, I'm going to show you again. So we're going to select this one, Control Alt, left click. Drag it out. Control, do multiple ones, right? Control Alt, left click. Now I can only move multiple at once. Just like that. CSG subtract. I told you what that is. So like if I create a brush here, right? So if I want to subtract this into this, I'm going to press Shift U. Now, if I move this brush, as you can see, it's all cut up. I'm going to pull this out. You see a nice hole where that brush was sitting in. I don't recommend using it. Like I said before, it creates way too many brushes. So I made 7 fragments from one brush. So this brush is now 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only reason I would suggest using CSG subtract is if you're cutting this one from this one. So I'm going to select this one, press Shift U, and now it's done. CSG merge. CSG merge is if you have 2 right next to each other, like this, you'll merge. CSG merge became one brush now. If it's like this, they won't merge. CSG merge failed. So this is why I use CSG wrap merge. So my shortcut for that is Control U. So even though they're overlapping, I can press Control U and it merges them. This is also really good for like if you want to merge wrap this brush and this brush together, you absolutely can. Now, if you use regular CSG merge, you can't. Failed. Result would be convex. It won't let you do it. So again, Control U for wrap merge. Done. It's also handy if like you have 2 angled brushes that don't meet. Sure, you could hit the edge tool and do that and merge them, or you can just select both and do CSG wrap merge and it merges them perfectly. Make room, so that's this one right here. So if I want to put this in a room, I'm going to create a brush. Just going to surround it entirely. I'm going to hit this button, make room. And now it's in a room. CSG tool, that's this button right here. CSG tool. Same thing. Make detail, make structural. So all brushes by default are structural. The only time you want to use this is if you have a detail brush and you want to make it structural. So complex brushes like these, you want to make them detail. So just Alt D. You can filter details by holding Control D. Pressing Control D, I'm sorry. So for example, I created this detail by accident. Okay, that's everything. I want to make it structural. I'm going to press Alt S, brush clear detail. So if I filter structurals, if I filter details, Control D, I clear that detail brush, and it's no longer being filtered out. So if I'm going to filter structural brushes, Control Shift D, it filters out everything except detail brushes and entities, of course. So again, Control Shift D, or click right up here. Structures back on. It's handy for very detailed maps. Texture lock, I recommend you use that at all times. Texture vertex lock, same thing. Reset texture, Shift N, Shift N. I don't know what that does. So I'm going to test something out, fit that, Shift N. Okay, that does the same thing. That's pretty nice. So instead of using the surface inspector and resetting the brush, you can just hit Shift N and it resets it for you. It's a nice shortcut I didn't know about. Copy face texture. Control C. Control V. Control C. C. Control V. Okay, that's pretty dope. I didn't know that. So I can select, make this for example, I can select this texture, select the face, Control V, and it pastes onto it. That's pretty cool. I didn't know I could do that. Auto calc selected, I don't like using that. It takes too long and it crashes the radio most of the time. Simple patch mesh. This is something you're going to be using often. So I'm going to create a brush. So we're looking from the top down. Curve, simple patch mesh. I'm going to do 3x3. And it creates a one-sided brush. So nothing from the bottom, only from the top. This is good for creating one-sided player clips. So if you want the player to be able to go through it, you can, but not come back out. That's the old method of disabling time reset. You can create bevels. Okay. You press Control I, you can invert it. So now the texture is on that side. So a player can run through this side, but can't run through that side. Just be mindful of that. End caps. So again, Control I to invert the selection. Cylinder. Oh, why they're so massive. Cylinder. And then you can make pipes and whatnot by pressing P. So you can select these individually. like so. Or you can do Shift right click, select the whole lot that you selected, stretch it out, and stretch it to the right. Okay. Just like that. It's a very shitty pipe, but you get what I'm doing. Square cylinder. That's just a square brush, square patch, I should say. I can't say I've ever used this before. Just create a freaking brush. It's the same thing. Exact cylinder. I have no idea what that is. Cone. So you see these often in the stock Quake 3 maps. It's not something I use often. Create a sphere. And this is pretty new. I've never seen this before. So with the brush, with the patch, you press Control N to naturalize it. Just be aware, the point that it meets, it's also going to stretch the shit out of it. So I'm going to create a bevel. Press Control I to invert it. Now I can cap the selection, Shift C. So these pictures are pretty self-explanatory. So I have a bevel, and cap it, press OK, and it creates a top and a bottom. So I'm going to create a end cap. Right, press Control I. So I'm looking at it from the inside. Cap selection, Shift C. I'm going to do inverted end cap. I'm going to do an end cap. Again, that's going to be the inside, right? Don't want that. I want inverted end cap. So I'm going to rotate this. There we go. So next inverted end cap, it creates that there. And be mindful, it also creates one on the bottom as well. So if I want to invert the bottom only, I do Control I, inverts the patch. Let's say the player is never going to see this one, you're going to want to delete this, otherwise it's going to show up in game regardless. So let's say like this is a floor, for example. Okay, I mean, it's not 100% even because I don't feel like doing that. I'm just gonna adjust that. I'm way off. Okay, now it's accurate. This is anyway. That's how you create end caps. Insert delete. So have a brush here, Shift P for simple patch mesh. Press OK. This is our simple patch mesh because there's no bottom. You can add columns and rows. So you're going to do insert and delete. Your shortcuts might be different. I changed mine. So you can insert columns, rows. So you can insert first and last columns, first and last rows, and then delete those 4 as well. So insert first column right there. Insert another first column right there. So if I keep adding first columns, it's going to keep adding them on this side, on the left side. If I do insert last column, it's going to start adding on the right side. Insert first row. Again, if I add more first rows, it's going to do on the top. Last rows will do on the bottom. And then if I press V for vertices, I can manually adjust these. I'm definitely not used to manipulating brushes in Netradiant Custom. I'm very used to GTK rating. I'm still getting accustomed to this, but yeah, you get what I'm trying to do. So you can manipulate this one. Alt up, yep, Alt up works. Select that, Alt up. I can select these 4, Alt up. You can create very shitty terrain like this. I don't recommend using patches to create terrain, but you absolutely can. So I'm selecting it with Shift right click, pressing Alt up, and I'm pressing Escape to deselect my current selection. So I'm going to select this point, and that point by holding Shift right click. And now again Alt up. Those 3 points I selected are being raised. I can lower them, shift them to the right, shift them to the left. Again, it's dependent on which view you're looking at. So I'm going to switch views one time. I'm going to shift it to the left, shift it to the right, up, down. Just as easy as that. Matrix, Control I. That's what I was just showing you. So if I want to invert it, Control I. It's now visible from the bottom. Control I inverts the view, so it's now looking at the top. So if you want to naturalize a patch, it's dependent on what case you want to use. So this, for example, it's very stretched out. I can press Control N, and it naturalizes it compared to what it looked like before. So if I manipulate this, as you can see, it stretches it out like crazy. It shrinks it. So I press Control N, naturalizes it. If I stretch it up, the texture is going to stretch along with it. Press Control N to naturalize. Oh, excuse me. Project, Shift. I don't know what this does. Boy, I'm going to have to play with that on my end. Invert X. Again, it's not something I really use, but you have it. form. I don't know what this does. I don't know what that does. You can play with that on your end. Thicken. It's a very handy tool. So I have this. I'm going to thicken this patch. Control T. I'm going to bump this up to 64. I'm going to create sidewalls, so I'm going to press OK. And it thicken the patch for me. So this side right here is your sidewalls. So I'm going to undo it. Control T. Uncheck sidewalls. So it's hard to see, but you got one face there and you got another face there. So Control T, sidewalls. Actually, this is all your sidewalls. So just be mindful. You also have a bottom face too. So if the player is not ever going to see this, just delete it. Control T, so you can bump this up to 64 units. Press OK. Just like that. I have no idea what this does. First time I'm seeing it. Okay. Right. Okay. I see what that does. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't say I've ever used that before, but you have that option. The only thing I usually use it for is normal. I've never used XYZ. That's new to me. Plugins. Only thing that might be useful is your PRT view. It's a bit more complicated. So I'm going to delete all this stuff. Jump to there. So to load the PRT view, you have to compile with save PRT. So I'm going to run this compile real quick. PRT is your portal file. So we got our portal file. I'm going to load PRT file. We're going to show in a 3D camera only. And this is your portal file in your viz. So you can see where your viz is broken up into. This is also in my tutorial for detail brushes. So if, for example, I make this all structural, so I'm going to do Alt S, so nothing is detailed anymore. I'm going to recompile. I'm going to unload the PRT file, and then I'm going to load it back up. 3D camera. And now you have a new portal for each square because this is all structural brushes. These are all new portals. So I'm going to undo what I did. Okay, those are details, and I'm going to make this a detail as well. So we won't have this portal right here anymore. recompile. Plugins, PRT view, load PRT file. Okay, and that portal is now gone. And all those little squares are now gone because those brushes are details. There's less portals visible. Because basically detail brushes won't. Detail brushes are. Fuck. Just read my tutorial. I don't feel like talking about it right now. So you go open save, undo, redo, flip horizontally, select touching. So select touching. It's going to select everything this brush touches. Select inside. So if I have this, select inside. Select inside. I don't know what the fuck that does. I've never used that. CSG subtract. Wrap merge. I show you this, make room. I show you that. Select vertices. F6 hand. Same thing as pressing V. Select edges. Same thing as pressing E. Select faces. Press F. Press F. You can manipulate the floor texture or any texture. So select a brush, press F. It's supposed to work. I don't know why it's not working. Yeah. Sliding it up and down right here. And it's manipulating the texture face. So for example, I want to line it up like that. Press F. I'll line it up like that. Nice and clean. This is Control Tab. I use this very often. Cubic clip with camera. I don't recommend using this. As you can see, after a certain point, things will stop being drawn in the camera. Translate. So the W tool. So I can, honestly, I've never used this before. Okay. Honestly, you really just gotta mess with the stuff. I'm setting the wrong key, that's why. W. Okay, this is handy. W tool is handy. You can move it. And you can also change the point too. So if I want to move it from down there, I can. Move it from there. From there. So if you disable texture lock, that's Shift T. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Rotate, I show you this. Scale. That just makes the brush bigger or smaller to your liking. Transform, Q. This is the button I pushed by accident. So just creating an angled wall. Honestly, no different than pressing E and and just manipulating the brush that way. I'm sure it has its uses, but I've never used it. This is your clipper tool. I've showed you this plenty of times. So I'm going to click that section. So again, you can do 1, 2, press Shift Enter to cut it, or you can do press 1 and double click and it cuts it. UV tool. So you're going to select the face, Control left click, press G. That's your UV tool, and you can manipulate the brush. Just be mindful of the brush you select. You may want to select a smaller brush, just like that, and you can rotate it 90 degrees, 45 degrees. You can manipulate it like crazy, shrink it, stretch it out. You can change the point of rotation. That transform tool, UV tool, is probably my favorite. You can do a lot of stuff with it. This is your caps on a patch. Shift P. Again, it's just another shortcut. Same as doing Shift C. Capping selection. This is your texture lock. Text your vertex lock. Your entities. Just press N. Refresh models. I don't know what that does. All your filters. This is your region selection, which I showed you earlier. So if I want to just select this area only, you can press R. That's my region that was selected. Press it again to disable that. Press this to show hide brushes. If you're working with a lot of brushes, specifically terrain, you might want to use brush cleanup. It just removes invalid or duplicate brushes. Create polygons. Let's do arbitrary number 15, 9. I don't know what this does. Okay, inverse just does on the opposite side. So again, 15, 9. Okay. Tree planter doesn't work. Splines doesn't work. Drop entity, I don't know what that does. And I don't know what any of these do. I've never used them. I think these are just legacy items. I've never used them. Flip terrain. Turn edge. Never used it. That's pretty much everything. That's all I got for today. I am pretty fucking tired. I will see you guys in the next video.